Hi, Penny Carlson from Topics in Digital Photography. In this series of videos, I'm going to show you my basic workflow for post-processing my landscape photographs. With most of my landscape photography, I use a process called high dynamic range photography. And with high dynamic range photography, you take 3 or more photos of the exact same scene and then combine them afterwards so that you have a final photo with more tonal range. In other words, you can see more of the detail in both the highlights and the shadows. A couple of you have also asked me, is there any secret for getting great sunset pictures? HDR processing can really help you brighten up your sunset pictures and make them pop. I took this series of photos in southern Florida. And one secret to getting great sunset pictures is to photograph a great sunset. Always have your camera with you, and when you get the right colors in that beautiful sunset, make sure you go out and capture it. I have 3 photos of the exact same scene. This photo is the correct exposure. This photo is overexposed. And you can see with this photo that we have a lot more detail in our ground area. This photo is underexposed, but you can see the sky is the best in this particular photo. You can hardly even see any detail in the shadows. And that's one problem with the sunset. You're taking the photo into the sun, and you've got generally a very bright sky, but it's getting dark out, and you're losing light in your ground area. So by combining these photos, we can take the best of all 3 and get a photo that's got a lot more tonal range and looks more like it did when we saw that spectacular sunset in person. I showed you how to post-process a photograph using HDR processing with Photoshop, but I don't really like Photoshop's HDR processing all that much. I like a program called Photomatix. If you want to download Photomatix and work along with me, you can do that. You can buy it. I'm using the Photomatix Pro, which costs $100. There's a Photomatix Essentials, which I think will do most of your basic HDR processing. But you can download a trial version and work along with me. And the only thing the trial version is going to do is it's going to put a watermark on your photo. Okay, I'm going to open Photomatix. I usually load my photos right from Lightroom. But since some of you may not be using Lightroom, I'm going to load them from my hard disk. These photos will also be available for you to download on eCollege, and you can work along with me. Got my photos ready to upload. Select them, hit open, hit OK, and a dialog box will come up. I did hand hold these photos. It is better to take your photos on a tripod. They'll line up better. But the software does a really good job of aligning handheld photos. And if you have a bracketing feature on your camera, you can usually get away with hand holding. I'm going to reduce the noise on my underexposed image, which is the default. I shouldn't have any problems with ghosting in this photo, so I'm going to skip the ghosting option. But if you have people in your photo or anyone that moved, you are going to want to use the deghosting tool. I'll leave it on the default to reduce the chromatic aberrations. And now it's doing its work. It's actually going to take a while, and I will pause the video. So don't be alarmed when your photo takes a lot longer to load. Once everything's loaded, you'll get to an intermediate step. You want to hit Tone Map Fuse, and Photomatix does its thing. Photomatix has a lot of built-in presets. They generally work quite well. Different photos will work better with different presets. You can make adjustments to the presets and save your own presets. So let's go through and look at how the photo looks using some of the presets. The default looks nice. Balance looks nice. Photographic's too light. Natural's too dark. These are the presets that often lead to a more natural looking photograph. Then we get down to some presets that are pretty far out, but can give you a nice painting kind of look if you're going for that look. The presets down here get back to being a little bit more natural. I often like some of the enhanced presets, and the interior presets can look pretty nice even on exteriors, but I think that is too dark. That one's really far out. Some of the soft presets look nice with this picture. I like that one. And if you wanted to go with a black and white photo, there's some very nice black and white options. But this was a spectacular sunset, so I want to show off the colors. Default and balance were my favorite. I think I like the balance a little bit better. And this looks pretty good right here. But I know for what I'm going to want to do in Lightroom that I might want to lighten it up just a bit. We can fool with any of the sliders we want over here. I do a lot of my adjustments later in Lightroom and Photoshop. And what I'm going to do now is just fool with this lighting effect a little bit to brighten it up a touch. That didn't do too much, but that's about where I want it. I click the apply, and this will take a few minutes. And this is all I'm going to do in Photomatix. It does give you the option to do your basic post-processing. I'm going to do that in Lightroom. So I'm going to go up and save this, and I'll call it Florida Sunset Photomatix. Saving it as a TIFF file. You have some options to save it as an 8-bit, a 16-bit, or a JPEG file. The more data, the better. I am going to post-process this a bit. I'll hit save. So I'm done with this part of the process. In the next video, I'm going to continue my normal workflow, work on this in Lightroom, and then take it out for some finishing touches in Photoshop. So be sure to watch the next video in the series.